Record. Right, good. Boom, boom. Right, recording. So, first of all, thank you very much for being here. You're all here for different reasons, of course. I just added to the webpage on the future of text under the journal right before the meeting that the point of the journal project is that we believe that connected online documents are still in infancy. We can and must do better. That is the main reason we're doing it. And also, as a little point, when you're not speaking, if you can please mute, because there are some odd sounds coming and going and we can never tell who they're by. Having said that, and knowing that I'm preaching to the choir, let's do introductions. David, your name starts with a D. Maybe you should go first. Actually, no, Chris, you're higher up in the alphabet. Let's start with you. Sorry.
Okay, I'm muted now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, unfortunately. Again.
Okay, so my name's Chris Guttridge. I work at the University of Southampton, where Frode is sometimes a PhD student. I've worked for 20 years in information technology and have a specific experience in open data, graph data, but the pragmatic side rather than the theoretical side, actually making it do things that help people. And before that, I worked in open access research, providing software to make research papers available to people who wanted to read research. I think that's a reasonable background. I'll pass on.
No, a little bit more, Chris, please.
More?
Yeah, a little bit more, because one of the main reasons you and I started talking was partly the open access, but also your strong interest in documents, particularly how documents work on servers. So if you can tell us a little bit about your passions within that, I think that would be very useful.
Well, I accidentally ended up working with a professor called Ted Nelson about 15 years ago, which scars a man. And it gave me a lot of ideas that didn't really ever pan out and work, as it tends to. But I took a lot of interest in how information could be structured, should be structured. I'm very frustrated with the current app model and the fact that people no longer build information infrastructure. They merely use the existing infrastructure to build more things to achieve localized objectives. But we're moving away from things like email and web towards more and more corporate controlled things like Office 365 or the Google domain instead, and that frustrates me. I would like to build more things that help people generally, but I've looked at things like Solid, but nothing's really getting funded. The public imagination isn't there, and I don't know how to solve the investment problem, return on investment problem, how to make people actually understand what's in their best interests. And Frode is irritatingly inspirational in this, and I don't think he'll succeed, but I'm willing to go down fighting with him.
Ah.
Better?
Okay, fine. You're over time now. Thank you. David?
I was just thinking about the last observation about don't think succeed but willing to go down fighting. Try and find a more constructive frame for the start of the conversation that's beginning with that. But I'm co-founder of DebateGraph, which is an online collaborative writing tool that has been exploring the space of some of the things that Frode's been talking about across the last 12 years or so, working particularly in a public policy context. And I'm a previous speaker at the Future Text event last year, and tremendously enthused by the field and the ideas and the founding fathers of it, and the way in which Frode is thinking about building on that and has been building on it too. So looking forward to the conversation ahead. I'm pleased to be in conversation with you all.
Thank you, David. So alphabetically, I guess it's Horia next.
Yes, hi, I'm Horia Idoku, and I've been working with Frode for decades. So I'm here to help with whatever this group needs and keep everybody on their toes. So that's my role. And Frode mentioned, Christopher mentioned that something we're working, it's not going to work. No, it has to work. I get involved only in things that works. And that's what I'm hoping for. So, but I've been fighting with Freud for years and years and years.
Did you
So
say
Freud can
working with
introduce
or
me
fighting
better, I
with?
think. I'm sorry?
You said earlier working with, and then you said fighting with. I thought that was quite funny.
Yes.
Both true. Before you introduce yourself, Stefan, if I may just add to what Horia said. Horia is quite frustrated at this group for very good reasons. We started this MOAD project many years ago. That's what it, months ago. That's supposed to be the software group for the 9th of September special Future of Text this year. And with very good intentions and from very good people, I feel that it became hijacked by the knowledge graph community. Nothing wrong with that, but it really so strongly became that I really had to retrench and look at some basic things. And that's why I decided there are people who are doing knowledge graph, which is great. There are many people in the overlap area, but basic reading and writing documents still has so much work to be done. And I really believe that we can at least make some changes that are good, as Horia insists. And I think also Chris is right. Hopefully we can reach too far in other areas, and not reach there, but at least get somewhere. So Horia is a bit frustrated that attention is going here rather than the main symposium. So I hope we can all make her very happy by being productive. Stefan, I'd like to hear from you.
Oh, hello. It's really difficult for me to come up with an intro even. I wrote my profile with some links and pictures to look at, or videos usually to look at. But I'm basically coming from, let's say, some more book type projects, basically conversions, automatic workflows, things like that, and are trying to solve my own problems at first with the lack of tools for doing things with text, for handling it, for working with text, which isn't necessarily so much in the document space, but starting with the simple things and then the more advanced things on top. And I recently got more into hypertext ideas, and I study the work of Doug Engelbart and of Ted Nelson and a lot of other people. And I basically have some influences coming from the Free Software Foundation, Richard Stallman, and also basic computer and networking principles and stuff like that. But I guess it's too complex to describe it in any useful. Yeah, but that's it for now.
Can you explain why you think it's complicated? So maybe that'll give us an idea.
Yeah, I mean, complexity is the name for a category of problems which have to do with things that are difficult to approach with the tools we have at the moment, and which we can probably build soon. Like for example, if you have a network, that means that you have a lot of distributed events you can't get knowledge about in time, or you have to crawl everything. And the whole problem of complexity is maybe something the institute might want to study in itself, but there are big and problems which humanity doesn't have a solution for, and there are some things of that type that have to do with computers and text on computers and distributed documents, I think.
Right, good. I'm just yeah. Okay, so talking about blogging, I think only you, Stefan, have really put in a profile. Do you all have access to the blog account on the journal.global?
Frode, wait a second. Is Jacob here?
Oh, I think he.
I know that.
Hang on. Oh yeah. Oh yes, good. I thought you dropped out. That's why my voice was so hesitant. I was trying to get you back while doing this. Jacob, please introduce yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, very well. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi. I'm Jacob Hazelgrove. I'm kind of the new person here, obviously. I'm an iOS and Mac OS software engineer, and I've wrote Liquid Author that we're currently shipping.
Let me just underline that. He wrote the only version of Liquid Author that actually works.
Well,
so that's an amazing thing.
It was a lot of work. Frode, do you want to give a history of other attempts, if there are any? I don't know to what extent they are interesting to learn about, but maybe not now, not here. But
actually, yes, I think I should, and then I'll go back and let Jacob continue. Hi, Jerry. I'm glad you finally joined.
I was just ready to get started now.
Yeah.
We've
just started getting going, so.
Okay, that's okay. Sorry about that. It just threw me completely. It made me jump hoops. I'm not back, but.
Okay, well that's good. You're here. So we're just introducing. Well, Jacob is just introducing himself. Jacob wrote my software, Liquid Author. So I'm just spending a few seconds on that history, and then it'll be back to Jacob and over to you. So the thing is, it started within, I think, 6 months of when Doug Engelbart died. The reason it started was that it was obviously for me and many other people, some people here on this call, both emotionally and otherwise, a very sad and bad time. And I decided that there's enough talk. People don't understand things if you don't show them. It's not enough to talk. So I started the author project with the express intention of getting way in over my head. Could everybody mute, please, if you're not talking? I hear some keyboards. It's a bit distracting. Sorry. So the first attempt I did was with a Finnish coder who did a very, very good initial version with lots of functionality, but it was built on stilts. So once we started trying to really get to the nitty-gritty, it just fell to pieces, and he actually had a breakdown. It had nothing to do with this work, but it was just really bad timing, and I'd heard from him 2 years later, and he's okay, but that was bad. Then I tried a Russian team, a Chinese team. Things happened, got to a certain stage, and it was frustrating. All of these people cost money. Jacob, with all loving respect, you're very expensive, but you get the job done. And that's why I've invited you here today to talk about potentially changing the world with kind of redoing the web in a way. So please, back to you, Jacob.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I'm not really sure how I'm going to fit into this. I don't know. I don't really know what the future is for this right now for me, but I'm just coming along to see where things go.
That's a good point. None of us know the future for how we will fit in. This is, at this point, all voluntary, though. Once we have some kind of a chart of where we're going, it's time for me to go out and get some money for this, because we just can't afford for this to be just free work. Jury, introduction, please. And unmute.
Jury, you are on mute.
Sorry. Anyhow, just too long, but I've been trying to do something like Engelbartian for the last 15 years, and only discovered 6 years ago that he's been there and done it all. So really, currently, I'm really interested in as the web is being reinvented by decentralization, IPFS. I really want to see how the whole thing, the journal, the bootstrapping can be done in that context. That's my interest, and of course the journal is indeed the heart of the thing, because this is where originally people were discussing what to build, how to build, and get their concepts right before they started building. And I think that's so that I regard as myself as the central thing. Yeah. That's it. I don't want to be too long.
I think it should be a little bit longer, actually. Why don't you highlight, because you're one of the people in the knowledge graph group who is also interested in this side. So maybe you want to spend a few seconds on that
yes,
connection?
I think it's really something that I've been working for the last, not too many years, but really under the name of Minecraft. The underlining everything is a universal graph model. I'm not the first one to discover. I think 30 years ago people discovered that when it comes to knowledge it has to be graphs, so there's nothing new in there. The new thing is that I'm really interested in combining the universal data model with a universal hypermedia model, and if you combine that with peer-to-peer communication as well, and also feeding it into and make sure that the personal knowledge work can feed into a community knowledge work, which in turn can really feed into federated knowledge. So that this is where we are at the moment, which I really feel excited about. So the knowledge graph is really fundamental, but also there's the new technologies, peer-to-peer world, which is basically the other way around. In Engelbart days, obviously it was a one machine World Wide Web. We have the World Wide Web, which is centralized. So really, the original problem hasn't really is being solved for them because they were just part of one system. But the real challenge is how you're going to integrate personal knowledge work, interoperability of knowledge work, and collective intelligence. So this is really, and I can see the journal when it is centralized is one way of going about it too.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you. We have two people who are trying to join, but they have work commitments and otherwise. So that's Timur and Paul. If they manage, they can introduce themselves when that happens. I asked the question just as we were confused earlier, if everyone has access to the jrnl.global blog. Does someone not have access?
I haven't checked because I'm lazy and busy. Sorry, Fred. It's Chris.
Then probably your invitation already expired, but you get a new one instantly.
Yeah, just send me an email asking, and I'll send a new invitation. I know that starting a new project, starting a whole new blog or a new whatever, is a pain, and it's part of the pain that I think we need to partly solve. But I also think that if we're going to build something together in any kind of capacity, we really need to start trying to live in one blog. Oh, Paul just joined. Paul, before you introduce yourself, I'm just doing the usual please use this platform for this project speech, which of course is a bit hateful, but since we're trying to extend and live and make blogs better, we should blog. And because weaving different blogs together is kind of crap software at the moment, something we need to solve, I therefore beg you all to please use your jrnl.global account, write a brief bio with links, and just start that way. Is that cool with everyone? Please mute if you want to say no.
Sure.
All right. That was supposed to be a joke. I hope at least someone got it. Mr. Paul Presley, can you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, and also why you think this kind of stuff is a bit interesting?
Sure. Sorry for being late, everyone. We were changing internet providers today. We've only just managed to get ourselves back online about 20 minutes ago. My name is Paul Presley. I am currently the editor of Geographical Magazine, the magazine of the Royal Geographical Society. I've been in journalism for well over 25 years.
Oh, you're dropping out a bit, or maybe it's me.
It's not you. I can't hear anything either.
Okay. Paul, maybe your new provider isn't fully set up yet. Huh. Well, let's give him a few more seconds to reconnect. Okay, Paul Presley left. While he's gone and coming back in, I'd just like to mention that I've known Paul since I was about 15. Let me see here. Ah, you're back, Paul.
Hi. So how much of that did you get?
You've been in publishing for a long time, and then I told everyone that I've known you since we were about 15, and please continue.
Well, that was pretty much it, actually. I was just sort of saying that we're dabbling in all sorts of more communication ways, different ways of presenting media and presenting journalism, and things the kind of thing that you're implementing here with Journal and with the future of text is stuff that's very relevant to what we do, and I'm looking for all sorts of ways that I can help to contribute on that front.
Thank you, Paul. I'd also like to tell everyone that you are going to be an advisor or partner in the physical printing of the 9th of December book, which is fantastic.
Yes, indeed.
Right. So we've all agreed to try doing a little bit of blogging together. We need to... I'm just looking at our agenda here. Actually, you know what? Maybe now is a good time to just vocally get a sense of what people want to do in this project. We all know it's based on WordPress, and we all know it's meant to go in the Engelbart route of making document discourse better. If there's someone who's passionate about something they think is important about this, it would be really nice to hear. Yes, someone has to have some opinion.
Hello, Chris here.
Hey, Mr. Chris, can hear you now.
Right, sorry, I was just drying my hands so I could unmute myself. Right, so I think one of the things that's important is we can't boil the ocean, that we can't solve all of these problems. What I'm most interested in is making people cross the intellectual gap in realizing that there is a problem to be solved or that there is a solution better than the one they have now. We want to inspire big evil corporations to invest in making the world better, and we want people to demand better systems, better approaches, and that can only happen if there's a demand and an expectation. So why can't it just work like that is about the best I think we could aspire to with a small team and a limited budget. We can't make the system people want. We can make a system that shows people what the world could be.
Could you elaborate on some specific way we can do that?
Okay, so when people create information, it's usually in one system or another. They can't reference things. We've just lost the connection from Twitter to Facebook. Things don't join up. I don't have an expectation of different parts of our world joining up and connecting, and that is a frustration. I'm trying to think of a good example with the text systems. Very simply, when I want to cite something, I have to cut and paste things by hand. And I think the whole cut and paste of metadata and structured information is something that we haven't really done. That when I want to reference something to you, the best I can do is send you a URL, and Facebook or Twitter queries the server and asks for some metadata based on the URL. And it's a very crappy system. And that's the most we have of interoperability of that kind of knowledge on the web. I'd like to be able to send you when I mention something, even in a blog post or in an article or anything, that it comes with the information to discover and validate that information, both in the short and long term. So in the very short term, I want the link. In the longer term, I want the metadata. And in the very long term, I want the most interesting words in the document as a fingerprint, so I can even identify it once it's been translated through 2 different languages, in fact. That kind of information isn't hard to do, but no one expects it, and they're not going to care about it until it benefits them. And so it's making these systems immediately valuable to end users, and that's hard because most people don't care. Most people just want to share pictures of their cat. And how do we make it so when they share a picture of their cat, they get extra value? Sorry, it's a bit of a ramble, but...
No, it's good. It's good to spend a few minutes on something very, very, very specific. So I would then ask the question, would something like when you paste a URL, the system goes across and grabs essentially the whole page, so that you have everything, both as a backup and also for analysis for the future, go somewhere along what you're talking about?
And what about copyright as well? So you can't possibly grab the whole page, but we haven't solved...
Wait a second, why can't you? That's what the browser needs to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
you cannot see what isn't downloaded, right? And
we can't legally republish the entire content.
That's true. That's something else.
As context yet, but what I'd like to be able to do is build a blog system that makes it easy to do hypertext concepts that people aren't familiar with, to familiarize themselves with. For the Doug at 50 blog, I added a very, very naive JavaScript feature which let you deep link to a section of a page, and when someone used that link, it highlighted the section you'd linked to. It's shoddy. It's using JavaScript in the browser. JavaScript in the page, not JavaScript in the browser. It's not the right solution, but I wanted people to see what that would look like. And I think one PhD student at the university sent me a link about my own blog that I also installed it on, using that feature, which, apropos nothing, they just used it to tell me what they were talking about and what they wanted to ask a question about. And it's a small step, but it was like, oh, they intuitively understood what it was for and used it. And I think that's what we need. Thinking about the Engelbartian thing, I'm not that familiar with Engelbart compared with some people here, but Frode was telling me about the high-speed searching as well. And I think, as an unrelated thing on WordPress, we could make something which had key press-based searching on a blog across everything on a blog, so that you could trivially search by author, search by papers, other articles by this author, sort it in different ways, using an Ajax and command line system on the blog with a very small plugin for WordPress. You think you could do something very powerful very easily to demonstrate that concept, but I'm not sure it ties into the more knowledge management and glossary management things that Frode usually looks at.
I'm on the blog right now, and just as an example of how far we have to go, I'm trying to find what you wrote. And there isn't anywhere for me that I can see so far. I can even add a list of our names on the side to search for stuff by Chris. Right, okay, let's not go into this issue too far, but this is the kind of dialogue we hopefully will be having. So then the question becomes, how are we going to work together? Should we, in the beginning, while we try to make this happen, have maybe weekly meetings for an hour, or is that too much of a commitment? And I do understand that people have jobs, families, and so on, that we do, at some point relatively soon, need to get some money into this.
I hate Skype meetings with a fiery passion, as you know. I just care about this enough to show up for one. So one of my suggestions would be, I want a meeting when people have something to say or something to show, not just weekly, but when there is actually something to talk about, to look at. The most interesting discussions I've had out of the previous group was when someone has got a thing that they want me to see, because not just an idea, but a demo, and the second I see one demo, that spurs me on to new ideas for myself, ideas for them. So I don't know how other people feel about that. Over.
That's great.
I agree with that.
I think that's great for someone who knows how to technically do this. But, that doesn't mean all of us. The reason I would like to have weekly or even bi-weekly meetings is deadlines make things happen. We may then feel, oh, we have that thing on whatever day. This thing I was going to write, I should finish it by then.
If there was some sort of group project management system, I hate using things such as a Trello or the other one, Slack, but if there was some sort of integrated project management system where we can just sort of keep seeing what people are working on, what people are working to, what ideas are being contributed, and then at a certain point when, as Chris says, there is something tangible to show, a gathering takes place. But just by being able to see things that have been working on, the progress that's being made, that sort of inspires probably as much as any set deadline, I should think.
I think that makes sense. And I mean, maybe a hybrid model that we at least have monthly meetings so we have some kind of rhythm. However, when it comes to Slack and Trello and all that, I would like to suggest we actually try to use our blog, because that means we have to make the blog less shit just for ourselves immediately. What's the feeling of that across the board, guys?
for it because that's a form of bootstrapping, of course, and forces us to work on some of the problems in ways that solve it for everybody. I mean, on the other hand, it means that we don't have a readily nice, clean tracking system right away, right? I mean, it needs some work to work a little bit better. But if you can live with that, if people can live with that, we could try to do that on the blog and improve step by step.
We also need to have some sort of I mean, people who do specific work should feel free to talk amongst themselves. You know, we don't have to always be together. But at the same time, we need to know that if someone is working on a browser plugin rather than a server side or a page, the rest of the team is aware of that, so we don't duplicate. So I would hesitantly say that we use the blog for that, and we just together come up with categories that make sense, such as active project or this is browser or whatever. Does that make sense? Because categories are quite powerful.
I'd also go a bit further, and I'd suggest that maybe instead of a weekly meeting, maybe a weekly or fortnightly newsletter to round up the blog posts people have written, because I don't want to read every blog post, and I do well with people pushing information to me to tell me there's more information to read. If you push me every blog post, I'm not going to read it. But just knowing that these are the updates, even if it's a basic system that just emails me, like what the blog posts are in the last 2 weeks, or even this week, that's more powerful than anything else.
Oh yeah,
Does that make sense?
A great idea in my mind, because like then we are already curating and you have your digest and you can still drill into the details in case of interest, right?
With the risk of not encouraging further people to come up with ideas based on what I'm about to say, that's great. Can you build it? Or do you know how we can outsource it?
I imagine there's a plugin for WordPress. I mean, not joking. What we want is something that periodically emails a mailing list with a summary of the title and first paragraph of blog posts in a time period. That's going to be an existing plugin.
Wait, what is the problem here? The mailing or what?
Oh, just the kind of collating everything. Okay.
A digest is what it's called in mailing lists. It would be useful if we could all have a digest of what each other had posted to the blog each week. And I think a week is probably a good thing for an email, that it won't fill up our inboxes. But if you write a blog post, everyone gets told you wrote a blog post, but no one is pressured to read it if it's not their area of interest. But we don't get one we don't get one email per blog post. You just get a summary every week of this is with the activity on Monday morning, this is what happened last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not terribly important that this works right away in the first week or something, right? I mean, I read your stuff you put on there anyway, so I could try to do that manually for some time, and then later, let's see how that can be improved if it gets too much. I don't know if I can write good summaries for you, Christopher, right? Which I kind of...
I think Christopher is talking about a plugin that does it automatically for you, so you don't have to sit and it just gives you a summary or digest of whatever it's been done,
but then
right?
how to pick how to come up with the summary if it's not like some kind of language analysis or just a few first sentences or something, right? Then that's an order of complexity more, I think.
The first paragraph of your goddamn blog post should tell us what it's about, the TLDR, and that's not an unreasonable request. If you want people to read it, you have to make it sound interesting in the title and the first 100 words.
Okay, this is when I'm getting really excited, because now we're accessing both the reading and the writing side of document writing. What you're saying there could be, if for our blog writing client, that we force a subheading that is that for the near future. But please look, I put a link in here to email post to subscribers that may actually do what you're talking about.
I mean, like in books or research papers, I mean, you could ask the author to write a summary, and if in case there isn't one, somebody else adds one later, right? And then we compile this stuff together that has the summary.
Should we make it clear then that we use maybe the tags kind of for a summary, that we promise that we're at least going to try to write tags for what we write?
No. The title is the most important thing. Like in the newspaper, you read an article based on the headline, and it's a skill to write a that tells someone if they want to read it or not, followed by the first section of text. That is
okay.
Not automated.
That's fine. You're talking about just blog post subjects, right?
Well, you just have to discipline yourself when you're writing blogs that whatever the content of your blog post is, you start with a headline and what we in the magazine and newspaper trade called a stand first, which is a 50-word intro that summarizes exactly what you're about to read. You just make sure you discipline yourself. These are the rule when you're writing blog posts. Do that, and then carry on with the blog post. And then whatever automatic reader we have that makes the digest, it reads the headline and the stand first or the intro.
And there's no point writing a blog post no one's going to read. So learn to do the techniques that mean people will read it.
Yeah.
I can give you a great example. Stefan is a very good typer. He writes really long messages. I asked him a while ago if he could turn them into more paragraphed communications, and he did. I was very impressed, Stefan, that you so quickly and in such a friendly manner made such a change. And I feel that we should all in this community be able to say things like that to each other, like, politely comment on how we can improve how we interact with this medium. So good. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's no point communicating with people who aren't listening. And if you put a load of effort into a communication I was reading, that was not really worth it, was it?
Yes, but you know the joke, I wrote you a long letter because I didn't have time to write you a short one. So the act of writing and editing is a huge part, and of course we can sit here as new friends, all of us, and say we're going to do this and that, but when it comes to designing the system, we later on have to try to design the system to really promote that kind of writing. I think that needs to be an active part of our design thinking. I once asked Jimmy Wales about how they keep Wikipedia well, and he said, we encourage people to be good and discourage bad. It sounded like a stupid thing, but it's profound, and he's made a success of it. So, have you all had a chance to look at the link that I sent for email post to subscribers? It's the one I just put in Skype, I mean.
I've not, sorry, as I say, we've only just managed to get ourselves back online today, the last half an hour or so it's been a little bit of a up and down day for us.
Yeah,
but I'll certainly look at it afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's okay, we can do that, but we only have about 15 minutes left, and I'd like to get a better sense of what we should do next. Because this is all new, it's currently all unfunded. Shall we just start doing blogging and communicating there and see how it goes, or should we plan at least one single future meeting just to see where we are and what people's enthusiasm is then?
Dumb as this sounds, I think maybe some kind of feedback on the blogging. If we're going to blog, maybe some way we can find out, did this blog actually provide value? Not in a negative way, but how could this blog post be improved without putting significant extra effort in for the author, so that we can actually write blog posts that benefit the other people who are reading?
So I think what you're saying is our first blog post, beyond everyone writing a tiny bio, should be, this is why blogging sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. Does everyone want to spend the time and energy to do that? By the way, If you don't say no, I'd count that as a yes. So that's how this democracy works.
I can do that if I don't forget it, right? So I just write it down.
Okay, and I would be really happy if I'm just writing that down myself. Why? Okay. And I'd be really happy if we could agree on one single meeting to review. Should we give it 2 weeks? how about same time on this September the 7th, which is right before the meeting Horia and I have for the symposium? You have to unmute, guys. It's kind of important to make sure the timing works and stuff, or if you think it's premature to make that, or what's going to happen.
The 7th is fine by me.
Yeah, I think 7th is okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Okay. Okay, fantastic. I have that down. So I'll be sending. Sorry, just fixing my own writing there. I'll be sending an email to the group, including you and the few people who wanted to be here today and couldn't. I'll just have the date in there, and all we promise is to write a brief article on why blogging sucks, and of course implied improvements, and then we'll see how we go from there.
Frode, why do you have to say why blogging sucks? Why can't you say something, you're doing something that people like and works and people like? Why do you have to say something negative?
Because that's what we're going to fix.
Sorry, can I take this one?
Yes, please,
Yes,
Chris.
please.
Sorry, so I mean, Frode's riffing on what I said, and it's because it's hard work to read other people's blogs. So the idea is something a bit ironic, but to say from the starting point of what we all find hard about blogs. So we know two things. One, how best to invest the energy we put into a blog post to help the other people in this group, because they're the primary readers. So if I write something, I actually want people to read it. So knowing what pisses them off, what puts them off, what makes their life difficult is the most valuable thing in not doing that. But also, if we're trying to improve the technology and using blogs as a focus point, knowing other people's pain points as well as their own is a starting innovation that we can think, I could fix that for you. So by starting by complaining about what pisses us off or sounding negative is actually quite a fun way to pitch it in how to be better for each other and how to make the technology better for everyone. Both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to add, besides of the language, I mean, at first, I mean, it's amazing that there are quite some software developers in this call which care about text and hypertext and this kind of topic, which is quite a rare thing, I guess, right? But on the other hand, it's also very nice that Paul and Horia and Frode are there, because like if we are just developers, maybe there's no user who has problems with text and content. So, I mean, what we still can do is to bootstrap our own text research and development thing and our own blogging and stuff. But you know, I mean, I have, of course, some of my own projects where tools can be used to improve them. But I mean, there. Like for the bootstrapping, there needs to be the practical user in this. But now we already came up with a few things like the task list and like the summaries, and I guess we will be busy enough with that, and then that can be used for other things, for other projects or content things as well, as we start to build a thing and it starts to work to put other things into it later. Yeah. And I also want to throw in, the agenda says there's the first point was supposed to be the symposium. I don't know too much about that, but I mean, for me it's fine to have those specific things right away, so we can start working on the week, like in the next 2 weeks, which is fine for me to have that. But I don't know if there are other topics to discuss.
Yeah, the symposium
like the general organization or kind of, you know, mission of the institute or things like that. I mean, maybe that's not important. Like, I mean, if we have something practical to do, maybe it's not too important, right? But yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'd like to address that. Thank you for bringing it up. So, the institute is something that I believe strongly, passionately has to happen. I think there's no choice. but it has to happen right. And I think that's going to take quite a long time with a lot of consultation. That's why after this call I'm having a meeting with Vint and Ismail. Ismail is someone I know through Vint, so that's why there's only the three of us, because he's very kindly offering his advice. This guy was director of the World Bank, the founding director of the Library of Alexandria. He has 39 honorary doctorates. He knows everybody. So, I want to talk to him and not waste his time. So the notion is that we work in the Institute in a very long pre-launch phase. If that's 6 months or a year, that doesn't bother me, but it is something that I'm very serious about that we should do together. The symposium, as some of you have already been presenting, quite a few actually, is every year. This one is very, very small, titled The Future of Text. It's the huge big letters is the 50th anniversary of Doug's demo, because we're doing it in conjunction with the Computer History Museum in California and with the Engelbart Institute. So the reason for this WordPress project is just, it is simple. WordPress is open and we can do demonstrable benefits. If we have something to show on the 9th of December, it's not going to be a big demo because it's not about us, but when we announce that we're doing a printed book, we'll be able to say we also have the same content online using some of Doug's ideas and ideas inspired by him. So it's a great launch pad for this incredibly simple project that I hope we can do together in a very impressive way. Does that answer how the different pieces fit together?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's a good way to collect the people who have more some, like NLS things in mind or something like that, that they don't leave the symposium event, the DAG 50 anniversary, and say, oh, okay, it's great to have the knowledge capabilities, but I still don't have, the some of DAG's stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of my fears will be on the 9th of December, someone in the audience saying, hey, you famous people up there on stage, not us obviously, but some of the other ones, why haven't you actually done some of this? And just sitting there quiet. If someone says that, in my mind, I'd like to be able to stand up and say, well, actually, we've been doing these really small things like paragraph level addressability, blah, 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 all these things in Doug's name. It's a tiny project. Here it is. I would feel supremely embarrassed not to have it within me to speak for us to say that. That's my emotional side of it. We can't talk forever. We've got to do something at some point.
So we can have the best of all worlds.
The best of all good
Hopefully.
worlds.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. I have to spend a couple of minutes preparing for the next call with Ismail and Vint. David, we haven't heard much from you. Would you like to tell us how you feel after dipping into this?
Yes, and thank you. I didn't want to speak to break the flow of the conversation, but just in terms of the agenda, I think my primary focus and interest is on the Institute and growing that longer term, and the role of the annual symposium and the book in that, and about ways in which those things can perhaps generate the funding that might support the software development in the longer term. So from my own perspective, I think I'm always delighted and encouraging to see initiatives in this area of this kind, and I'm always really happy to give feedback on that and to try and help cultivate and nourish those. Equally pragmatically, I don't have the time to be an active participant in the work of building another tool, or particularly to participate in the regular call process around that. If it's useful to get feedback from me at any time, I would be delighted to do that. Similarly, and partly because I'm dyslexic, contributing to the blog post is something that anything that involves writing automatically shifts it down the list of things to do, and the list of things to do is a long one, and so something that gets shifted down is quite likely not to get done. So I wouldn't expect to be an active participant in that process, but if it's ever useful to get input, then verbally is probably the best way to get feedback from me, and I'm always happy to make time to talk, to give that kind of feedback. So I think I see my continuing role insofar as that's of use and interest within that kind of broad framing. I just wanted to give you that in case it's useful to talk about that or get feedback as well. And thank you for giving me the space to do that.
Hi, can I say something here? Just first of all, none of us quite know where we're going, so every perspective is useful. And the dyslexic thing, if in doubt, you can always post a YouTube video or a SoundCloud or something. Like I have several dyslexic friends who are a bit more confident in just angrily misspelling their way through the internet. But if you've got something useful to say, don't let that stop you. Find a mechanism that works for you. We're happy to hear from everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. But of course, David, also your workload I know is extremely heavy. However, a specific question to you is. Actually, two questions. One, I think you and I are looking this in the opposite ways, which is very useful. I think you said the Institute and the book can help fund the software. I think doing basic software can help give us credibility for more funding. So let's have that conversation over coffee someday. But more importantly from you, I think that discussions with you about how this work overlaps with DebateGraph and how things could be integrated like that would be very, very interesting, especially in parallel with the MOAD group's knowledge graph work. What do you think about that?
So yes, see the potential for that, and always happy to be in conversation around that. That's a rather different thing to focusing the time to work with a team to be building something else new. So I think that the conversations around that, and as the software is maturing and that there's the possibilities to integrate with that, are definitely very interesting things to do and a very natural thing to be doing in the space and consistent with the ideas and the principles underlying that. Right. So yes, really happy to have any of those kinds of conversations at any time. Those are kind of an adjunct to the process of a group of people coming together to build the software in the way that you're talking about at the moment. At least that's how I perceive that at the moment.
That makes sense. Got to go in a few seconds, but Jacob, any final words from you? Jacob, are you there?
On mute, probably. Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, Skype.
Okay.
I don't like Skype.
No.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, very well.
Okay. Nothing much right now. I'm just kind of listening to things and seeing where things go. I'll look into posting stuff on the blog. We'll see maybe if author has a place in this, as you've talked sometimes in the past. So I
think maybe it'll have to. I mean, you can already post from author to the blog via Liquid Flow, but we should probably make that an internal thing, and while we do that, write it up so anybody can copy us, so we keep this truly open for that particular aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Got to run. Please talk amongst yourselves, obviously. Please also blog at least a little bit, even if it's just a hello, just to have done it. And I'll send an email later today when I'm done with my next call. And
okay, TTFN, I'm going to head off.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good weekend once it starts.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.
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 Okay.